I'm Elisa Mortensen, and this is Undo Redo.
Hello, everyone. I want to talk to you today about managing our perfectionism tendencies, because we all have them, and still practicing with the video and the audio. At this time, I'm wearing headphones. We're just going to play every single time until I land on what I like. So, if you can think of perfectionism as not being something you are or aren't, but being something that's more on a continuum. That's how I want to approach it today, because it's not true that you either are or you aren't. Because if you really look into a perfectionist, they aren't that way in every area of their life. So, and being a perfectionist is only a problem when you combine it with the lack of self-love. So if you're trying your very best and doing your best, and it's coming from a place of love and compassion, that's one thing. But if you are upset at yourself when you can't get it right, that's a completely other thing. So I even want to talk about sacred text just for a second, because I want you to hold this in your mind while I'm talking. If you think about how it says in the Bible, be ye therefore perfect, right? That's up to the reader's interpretation. It actually means to be your whole self. And we're all 50-50. We're all both good and bad. It's all available to us. So it actually means just to be your whole self and not think that you're flawed and not think that anything is wrong. Just be all who you are, right? So the real perfection game is an all-inclusive and all-accepting of yourself wholly as you are right now. And that's what I want to offer you today. And I want to give you some advice and bring some stuff to your attention. So let's just bring that with you and move forward into evolving ourselves as individuals as that perfectly whole person. Okay, so there's no need. Perfectionism is actually fiction because it's not actually attainable. I'm going to go over some things that we see in someone who may have some perfectionism tendencies or in different areas. Maybe you'll notice some of these in you, and you'll definitely know some people who you've observed having this. But perfectionists must get everything right. I mean, that just goes without saying, but they become avid seekers of accuracy. And they lose their peace to the cause of always making things happen the right way and having it to be just so. And in their world, everything gets worse because out of this desperate energy, they try to make it the very best. And we're not at our best when we have this, assuming that there's going to be some devastation just around the corner. And typically, some of the perfectionists can be procrastinators. They can have some great ideas in their mind, but they just can't get them out. Sometimes they can't bring themselves to do it, just in case it's not good enough, as if they can't produce the perfection the way they see it in their head. And they would rather go get a 0 and do nothing than show up average or below average in their work. Some procrastinate because they don't have enough mental energy at the time to see through a task. And then when it gets really close to being time, or they're about to be in trouble for not doing it, then they get that adrenaline that gets them through busting it out very quickly. But it's at an extreme cost to them. It's an extreme cost to sleep and stress levels and that worry that comes along with being a perfectionist, that if you don't have things top notch and it's less than, somehow they lose their self-identity and their own value is at risk. And that's their own belief, their own identity about themselves is like jeopardy if they don't do it. Other perfectionists, you'll find in this area where they worry about their image. Their image will literally be at risk in their mind, and they can't handle the idea of looking bad in front of the eyes of others. So a pretty common idea about perfectionists, I would say, is that you either are one or you aren't one. And it depends on what area of life you're talking about at the moment, but because like I said earlier, it's your misinterpretation that it's a chosen identity. Chosen that for yourself, and you've kind of taken it on and made it become you. You set some unreasonable goal for yourself, and you are not nice to yourself if you don't achieve it. That's when you know you have perfection in that area. And really, perfection is an ego thing. Another misinterpretation is that, sorry, I lost my voice this week, is that it's a destination. You do enough that you'll get there. And social media creates this environment in which we have celebrated perfectionists. We're celebrating perfect all over the internet. And we compare our lives to theirs, and it causes harm on all angles. And the reason I wanted to talk about perfectionists today is because as leaders and caregivers and parents, it affects the people that we're working with and that we're around to have these tendencies in these different areas. It causes a lot of tension and there's a lot of friction involved when something that's our priority does not line up with something that is their top priority. Like it may be a 5 or a 10 to us, and it may just be like a 1 to someone else. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. And I want to talk about what you're surrounding yourself with. If you're surrounding yourself with tons of false messages and you're consuming media and literature that talks about these messages of perfection attainment, just know that it's unrealistic to have those kind of expectations of yourself and expectations of those you manage. It's just not in a healthy way. So if it's all fiction, then they're all inappropriate aspirations, right? But if we were to purchase one more thing, then we would arrive. Or if we got up earlier, or if we could be a better cook, if we could just keep the house cleaner, right? Then we would arrive. As parents and caregivers and leaders, that perfection, it pushes our issues onto them. But I need to prioritize overachieving and getting perfect accuracy. It pushes it onto the people that we're around that may not see it that way or feel about it the same way we do. And they become a mess as a direct result of trying to fit this mold that we have set under a demanding tone. And it's impossible for them to accomplish this because sometimes even the best that they can do will not be good enough. And that's just the downfall of the perfectionist mindset. And so it doesn't mean that anyone has failed really when it's not good enough or that anything has gone wrong, like it's not happening exactly the way that perfectionist wants. But as a parent or a leader or a caregiver, like we're their guide and we're in charge of overseeing things. That means we can behave in ways that motivate through connection and relationship that we have with them because that gets better results. And behavior doesn't come from some perfectionistic compliance like we think it does. Then we treat them substandard if they're doing substandard. So we just need to be onto ourselves a little bit, and our brains offer us these things and these tendencies that we've got ourselves into because we can back out of these things. A lot of dangerous and toxic environments are being put in place from perfectionists' fears of their own imperfections. So they need to be perfect, but they're actually not perfect. So they're trying as hard as they can to gain control of an out of control life that's not perfect. And they're pushing all of that pressure onto everyone around them. It's our own grief, our own trauma, our own avoidance of our insecurities that's projected onto them. And we don't want to do that to them anymore. That's not the way to get the best behavior, the best efforts, the best performance out of those that we oversee. And I want you to know that perfectionism is a choice, but it also can be environmentally conditioned. But regardless, we can use our minds to observe ourselves, and we become aware of where we're using it at the cost of ourselves. Because sometimes where we're using it isn't at the cost of ourselves, and we feel driven, we feel motivated, but it becomes at the cost of ourselves when it interferes with our well-being. In the places that we feel agitated too easily, and we've ended up with repeated like slavery to attain the things that we have made too high of a priority. When we're heightened because we chose those fixations, so many messages in our mind being received from around us, like these people are being slow, or they're not paying attention, I demand their full attention, they must pay attention to me, or there's crumbs on the counter, there's crumbs on the floor. Like all these messages are coming at us really, really quickly throughout the day. There's wrinkles in that clothing, there's dust over there. And if you're becoming unwell because of it all, and you know you have to do something out of desperation to set it right and to get it all done, and then you rinse and repeat that story, those are the types of perfectionists that are going to see more conflict and give themselves more work than is necessary in their lives. And that will be putting pressure on somebody else and causing them to be unwell as well. Do you want to redo from this? Some of you that are seeing these things. So the number one problem for perfectionists is the tendency to make something more important than it really is. You act like somebody is just gonna die if that thing happens, right? And that's just not serving or benefiting you in any way to make something such a high priority that is really such, in all reality, like low priority. Our brains just are convinced that it's really, really important because we've told it over and over that it is that way. I'm just going to grab a drink. And if you can see that it's holding you down in some way and you're really unsettled because that thing's not getting done, just pay attention to it. Just watch yourself and observe yourself, right? It's all fake. It's all made up. We all just decided at some point we had to have that. Another idea for this is like to make sure you're not choosing to be around and consume things that are sending your mind those messages that we talked about, but really aren't that important. The messages that aren't healthy for you. The ways of making things, this is one way better, and this is an even better way, and this is an even better way. The ones that are mentally or physically putting on the unnecessary pressure to you to live in a world where you have to do it all or you can't be happy. But we actually live in a world where you can decide to no longer let it make you crazy or have an effect on you, or just turn it off or unfollow, or leave the crumbs for a minute if you're not feeling up to it, or tell somebody else to clean them, or just not let it own you, to actually have it be there and to not fall into its power, or give your power and your happiness up to it. And there's a way that you can handle things very gently and not drive yourself mad every single time things pop up. Like if our energy is just heightened every single time a little thing happens, and it's like seemingly taking control of you, it means you're just giving your power up to it. So a slow and gentle approach is how to change it for good and like loosen the grip that it has on you. So just observe how much power you are giving it over you. If nothing at stake is permanent, then it shouldn't be a very high priority. So challenge yourself to just let it fall to the wayside, or at least not bring up that really intense energy and fall to the effect of that. All right, work on very gentle ways of responding to it and very easy ways. Like you want to do it, just go ahead and be like, I want to clean that up. And not with the energy of like desperate, like urgent, oh, I have to clean that up. Why is this happening? Because that just harms your body. It harms you. All right, those kind of thoughts. Other best idea that I have is something that I teach in my program, and it's just keeping a specific type journal. One that looks at your behavior and your responses. For this area of perfectionism, I would, if I were you, if you want to get a handle on this, to start tracking your perfectionistic issues that you have had in these types of categories. Like number one would be this what was the stimulus? Like someone doing this thing or someone not doing this thing. Are you having your pictures taken and you're agitated? It's not going well. It's not perfect enough. Is someone giving you attention that you don't want them to, or ignoring you and they don't want them to and they're not listening? Like something that was stimulated this perfectionistic like rage, right? So number one is what's stimulating you. Number two is the response. What is the response? Do you have anger? Are you trying to just backpedal and avoid it? Are you blaming? So what stimulated you, right? Is it the crumbs or something you saw or something you heard, something somebody's doing? What response do you have? Okay, what's your initial response? And number three is the outcome. What's the outcome? Is it an argument? Is it just an out of control feeling? Is it anxiety? Is it trying to get back in control? Is it a fight? Is it just feeling hurt and retreating, withdrawing? It helps your brain to wrap around what's happening each day. If you kind of keep a journal of like what just happened that got you into this state of feeling like your power is taken away. And where did you give it up to? And what was your response to it? Just so you can get some information and work with it. And you'll become able to recognize your moments, and you'll also be able to recognize their moments. Your responses start to shift, and you can help their responses shift in situations. You'll love this with some practice because it brings a lot of awareness and it promotes growth in those places that you are weak in. And you're also able to help others promote growth in areas that they may be weak in, drawing their attention to it in a very gentle, loving way. So if you feel your own unaddressed perfectionism starting to poorly affect those that you manage and those that you're responsible for, then find help. Find a trusted accountability person, like to remind you to act the other way that you decided to instead. And be very careful in the person that you choose and the quality of care that you reach out for, because these types of issues are like infused in every area of our life. It's not just like one or two areas. Like, help me be better in this area. It kind of shows up in every area. So be very careful about the quality of people that you are getting on board to help you with this. And remember, you're already doing it. You're here, you're listening to this podcast. It piqued your interest in some way. So you're already here. You're already setting yourself up. You're looking for better ways, healthier habits, and you could start to ignore the things that aren't working for you and the places that you don't want to be, the feelings you don't want to have, and you can focus on what you do want to have. And you can go all in on that instead. So just remember, if you have these tendencies, don't treat everything as if it's like a red light emergency. Be gentle on yourself and to them. It's a much slower process than those feelings of urgency that come up right in the moment. Those feelings of you to believe that like you got to act on this right now, and after about 90 seconds it kind of is going to go away and you really won't have to act on that. So you don't need to do anything rash. Just take it nice and slow, because that's where the long-lasting results come from. Resilience can become you when you practice this. You can be the leader and the parent that knows we all take hits. Everybody on this earth take hits, and things don't always go as planned. So not everything has to be just right. So refrain from protecting yourself and everyone else that you're in charge of from things that make you uncomfortable or nervous, because resilience can only be made on the other side of those challenges, the things that kind of make you nervous, the things that kind of make you uncomfortable. If you start to lean into those things, challenge yourself to lean into those things just a little bit and to kind of explore it, right? And it's not through perfecting and protecting everyone and everything that we get resilience, right? Because if we're perfecting everything and protecting everyone, then we just remain fragile, really fragile, because nothing is really solved. Hurting isn't a sign that you failed. And even if you're like, oh, they failed at that, it still doesn't mean we're failing all the time. It's just part of the same existence. We both get peace and anger in this life. We always get 50-50. So lastly, I want to advise you to let your mind daydream a bit about the future. Let your mind go to the future just enough to get you through deciding what it is that you want coming up. And then align that thing that you want with something you can do every day. And maybe it's in your interactions, maybe it's in your routine. But everything outside of us that you're trying to manage and control and make perfect, it all goes away. One day it's just all gone. So don't make it more important than it should be. Don't need things to be so perfect that you lash out at someone and hurt someone and cause them trauma inside because it didn't happen for you and it doesn't look a certain way, right? It just seems ridiculous. It's not like everything is not life or death. If it's not permanent, then just kind of be gentle, right? There's no permanent result happening, that it doesn't need to be addressed like that. But you can still be a mess inside and everything outside of you be really awesome and look really good. So don't ruin the ones you manage in the wake of that. I want you to share this with anyone that you thought of while you were listening, because that's how heaven reaches us, is through each other. And get on a call with me if you want to see how this works and looks like in your life. And we'll talk to you next week. Okay, bye.